My name is Ramona Shaw, and I'm a leadership coach, and I help specifically new managers transition into leadership from an IC role, an individual contributor role, into their first leadership position. I also work with teams and more senior leaders who are looking to level up overall. And the work that I do is around communication, relationships, trust, compassion, executive presence, confidence, and you name it, all the things that will help us create workplaces where we thrive and where people love to work for their leaders and the teams that they're with.
Yeah. Oh, so needed. This work is so needed for sure, especially for new leaders. And I'm curious how you got into the new leadership side of things, because there are a lot of leadership coaches out there for sure, but I'm not sure. Are there many new leader coaches out there?
Yeah, there's some, and I hope there will be more, because I think this is exactly the group of people who need coaching and training the most. I think transitioning into leadership is probably, for many people, the biggest transition in their career, not because it is maybe massively different job or a huge step in terms of their responsibility, but it is the biggest shift in how they see themselves as an employee. And so you're going from being an individual contributor, thinking mainly about your own goals and doing good work for yourself. I mean, you deliver that to the organization, but it's mostly about your performance. And then you're transitioning into a position where your personal expertise, your experience in that role will matter less and less, and the people skills from day one on will matter a whole lot more. And that's why I'm talking about that, this being a really big shift. And I think through this process, like with any new skill that we're learning, we need support. I often talk about this analogy with, we would never get on top of a big mountain and say, I've never skied before, but let's rock it. You know, I'm a really good, a client of mine said, yeah, it's like, was a really good swimmer. Like, he was a really good engineer. And now you should be really good at skiing. Did you not know that?
Yeah.
You don't need any classes or any lessons for that. But really, my belief is, no, we do need, leaders in general are carrying a huge load. It's a big responsibility, because whatever they do and say has a ripple effect that goes way beyond just their own personal sphere. And so any support is needed. But particularly for people who are new to this, who are just trying to figure out what this all means, how to best work with people, how to motivate and engage and give direction and be clear, and create relationships where there's trust and compassion present.
Trust and compassion. Yeah. And I feel like you don't hear those words talked about a lot in the workplace. And because that is what you are helping people cultivate, again, so needed and really, really worthwhile. And the idea that they're moving from this individual contributor role, as I like to say, the worker bee role, and just kind of got their head down, they're the performer. And then all of a sudden they have to pick their head up and be the people person. That's a really hard shift for sure.
Yeah, well, and it's I like the analogy that I'm making here, because a lot of times people think, oh my gosh, now I'm just always talking to people, I'm always helping others, but I never get to do my own work. Right? I end the day, and I used to be that very same way. When I was first a manager, I always thought up until 5 o'clock, I solve everyone else's problem. I help everyone else get through their to-do list. And then it's 5 o'clock and I haven't even started on mine. Right? And it's sort of the idea that, oh, wait, I wasted all day on others, and then I have to do an extra load of work at the end of the day to get my time done. And I'm not, maybe waste of time is a big word. That's not exactly what it feels like, but it seems as if that is now part of the job, and it's not enough yet. I still have to do my own job at the end of the day, my own responsibilities. And so this is a clear mindset shift, because as a leader, your main responsibility will be to unblock others and give direction and support them in achieving their to-do list. And so for you, being in meetings, heads up, thinking about what they all need and how to challenge them further and set the direction for your team, those are the things that will matter most. And now I've been in situations, of course, I know this but personally, but also see this day in and day out with with clients and companies I work with, not all leaders, especially new leaders, are just leaders or just managers. Most of them have their own responsibilities and their slice of IC work, as we call it. That needs to be combined with what they do for leader in terms of their leadership responsibilities. But and that can be a tricky challenge. But helping others is now a key part, if not the most important part of their job. And it requires an identity shift, because if someone was a worker bee, right, head down, always executing, and they got a great deal of satisfaction out of achieving things on their to-do list and producing something of their own, and now all of a sudden they're not getting that anymore, that can lead to frustration. People feel like, oh my gosh, I don't feel like I'm adding any value because I'm not doing anything. I'm always helping others to do things, but I'm not doing anything. And that can be challenging. Yeah, but it's just a new identity.
Did you have support when you shifted from an individual contributor to a new manager?
I didn't have enough support, but also I didn't think I was aware that I needed support. Like my personal awareness was not there. I sort of ran into this, or not ran, but stepped into this position thinking, I will figure this out. Yeah, I'll make mistakes, but I will be okay and I'll figure this out. And there was way too much that I didn't know
Figure
I didn't
out.
know.
Yeah.
Or didn't realize I didn't have. I was definitely not a born natural leader. I really had to learn the hard way.
Yeah. Yeah. And would you say in that first go as a manager, would you say that you were successful eventually before you left that role, that company?
Yeah, but it took a while. And it really took a while, and it took work, and it took for me to have an outside perspective, my own coach who was helping me see things I didn't see before, who was presenting to me ideas and perspectives I've never considered before. So really getting myself out of my own shell and out of my jar to look at the label on the outside, right? And you know, the company was really supportive in different ways, and would have helped if I had asked for help. I just did not realize I needed the help. I needed the help for too long. I was pushing through. I was sort of being persistent and trying to figure it out. And then I realized this is just hard. Why is this so hard? I think I need to get help. And that changed the direction of my career. I would say getting that help and then starting to enjoy leading people and not just feeling like that's the tough part of my job.
Right. Do you remember a specific shift when you started to like it and you started to say, oh, leading people is actually not so bad? What's that?
Yeah, story? I think one of the biggest shifts was to realize that I am not here to create or try to form a team of people who all work the same way as I do. I am here to leverage individual strength and really appreciate the differences that we have, and to create superpowers out of that by seeing how are we complementing each other, and how can I bring out someone with a very different perspective, a different opinion. How can I bring that out and into the conversations, even if that doesn't naturally feel like the right way or the right thing to do for me? And that was a big shift, because I started to realize, oh, it's not about me and me setting the direction, and or not just the direction, me setting the tone. It's how we all should be working. It's very much, no, this is my style, and my job now is to bring out the best in each of the people, in every person on my team. And that may be very different from what I would see for myself, because we're all working with different talents and strengths.
Yeah, of course. And I think one of the things, so as you know, I work with a lot of women, but people in general, men and women, around presentation skills. And one of the struggles that everybody seems to have is, I'm so nervous when I go on camera. And what I found over time is that the main reason why people are really anxious when they go on camera is that they have all this self-focused attention, and they feel like, oh, it's all about me, and I have to perform, and I have to keep talking and be eloquent and concise and all these things. And what I try to coach people and share with them, because it's really helped me, is that it's actually not about you. It's about making sure that your audience understands what you're trying to communicate. So it's a service, communication as a service instead of a performance. And it sounds to me like what you're saying is similar to that. It's not about, I'm the leader and I will lead and you will follow. It's more about, okay, hey, how can we get this job done and do this together and make this thing happen for not only the company, but for each other. So that focus is different.
It's a total shift from focusing on me to focusing on we and them. Yeah, absolutely. And for many ambitious professionals who are often that's the group that will get promoted because they have the drive and they're communicating that they want to reach the next step and want to become leaders. Those are the people that stand out and often then get promoted, but it's exactly those people who have the hardest time making that shift from the me into the we and the them. Yeah. And I think I love what you said about the presentation skills and focusing on having an impact on other people and taking the focus off of me as the presenter. I think it's very true in any communication as leaders too, be this in sharing difficult news, or be this in giving tough feedback, or really recognizing and praising someone. It's not about how I feel in the process and my maybe uncertainty or doubts that I have about how well I'm doing. It's about how can I help this person and what do they need from me? They need me to point things out, right? It's like telling someone you got spinach in your teeth. Awkward, but it's like, well, I'm not going to not say that because that makes me feel awkward. That's very me focused. Instead, I'm going to say it because if I were in their shoes, I wouldn't want someone to say it. Yes. And so I want to say it for your benefit, even if that makes me feel uncomfortable in the moment. It's not about me. It's about
them. Yeah. I think it was a post you did on LinkedIn recently. It was about the nice boss syndrome. Yeah. And it feels like that's in the same vein with what we're talking about now. It's about actually being willing to give that candid feedback to someone in a way that they're going to take it on and grow from it, instead of trying to kind of like couch it or mask it or make it less nice, essentially. And when I work with women, I see this a lot. We do role plays where I say, okay, I'm the employee, you're the boss. I just gave you a report and it's missing these things. I want you to tell me what you really think of the report. Tell me what it's missing and tell me to do it again. And it's really hard for them to speak in a direct, clear, and concise way without using all this qualifying language and hedging words. And then from the individual contributor's perspective, we're trying to figure out, what exactly do you want me to do? What do you actually think? And then what are the steps that you want me to take? So yeah, can you speak more to that? Because I think it's so rampant, especially with women. I see it most with women.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, I've surfed this in myself too. There's something about, I don't want them to feel bad, because if they feel bad, then I feel bad. Because I think I inflicted that bad feeling. So then because I don't want to feel bad, I want to make sure they don't feel bad. And so there's a bit of the tolerance to say, on one hand, we all own our own emotions. So being clear and saying, it is my duty. And as a manager, it's most often not explicit in your job description, but it is your responsibility to give feedback and to recognize and really point out the strength and the development areas. And to let people know how they're being perceived, or how their actions, even if they come from really good intentions, may negatively impact those around them. It is your job as the manager to point these things out and identify the patterns or the behaviors. And so from that standpoint, I have to be okay if they are getting frustrated or sad or disappointed based on what I'm saying. I will try my best to lower their defense mechanisms, to make sure that this is a safe conversation where they know their relationship is not at risk. The reason why I'm sharing this is to help you be successful and help you to learn and grow. But it's my responsibility to share it and bring it to the point so that you understand and it hits home. My message lands. And so there's the two ways. And one, I want to make sure that their defense mechanisms don't go up. So creating that safety. And then two, it is, like you said, being really clear. And when we can embrace the fact that any emotion that they have is justified, it's welcomed, it's okay. The emotional reaction to the feedback is theirs to own. Mine to own is how I feel and the way I deliver the message. And then they can react in any way. And so detaching from that sometimes help us see that I'll be compassionate. If they start crying or they start getting frustrated or disappointed in themselves because of the feedback that I give, I can be there present and compassionate with them, because I can say like, yeah, if I got feedback like this, it would maybe take me a day to really make sense of it and embrace it. And that is okay. I'm not trying to control their emotional reaction, because once we try to, which we really can't, but if we try to, we start to be unclear, wishy-washy, and sugarcoating. So I think the way to go about this is to be as clear as possible and then be compassionate with their response.
And how do you coach people? I'm really curious about the actual wording that you coach people to use, because I find that in theory, it sounds great. And then when people are actually in that situation, they fall back on old language habits and patterns. Do you have certain phrases, or is there a method that you follow besides the overarching container of safety and then being clear?
Yeah. Well, generally speaking, I would say, and I'm trying to get here specific with the language, but I would say starting off with, and this depends, the reason why I'm hesitating is because it really depends on the relationship that's already there. If this is a long-lasting work relationship and there's a lot of trust and safety already in place, you need less of the hedging, less of the leading in and intention setting and all that. If it's somewhat of a new relationship, maybe this is a new employee, and this is the first time that you're bringing up something that you might have noticed, then, and you don't know yet how they're going to react, but you worry that this will change the relationship. So leading in and saying, hey, I want to raise something and bring something to your attention that I have noticed or that I have become aware of. And I'm sharing this with you because I think it's important for me to communicate things that I see may be getting in your way, or where I'm not sure if you're seeing the impact your actions have on other people, whatever that may be. Or I want to share this with you because I want you to learn from this opportunity the most that you can get, so that next time around, you have the information you need to do this at the next level, to really grow and expand in your role. So feedback conversations are the best tool for improvement. It's the number one tool for improvement. So as your manager, this is my responsibility, and I'd like to talk to you about it. Now, this was a very long-winded, but I'm just intro. What I hope that I gave different sentences here to pick and choose from. It doesn't need to be a 5-minute lead-in or warm-up, right? It could be a sentence or two to set the tone for the conversation, and then start right into that feedback conversation. Not to start off with praise and then go into something constructive and then end again with praise and what we've learned as the feedback sandwich. That starts to come across as manipulative, and we are more likely to sugarcoat. So getting in and saying, this is what I noticed. And then instead of saying, and here's what I want you to do differently, say what you noticed and then ask a question, because this is a feedback should never be a one-way dialogue. Or monologue. It should never be a one-way monologue. This is a dialogue. It should be a conversation where I share what I notice, and then I ask a question and I say, and it makes me curious, like, what was going on for you? Or how do you see it? How did you experience this? Do you see this happen in other areas of your life too? right? So really helping them uncover what was going on and for you to learn what may be the root cause of what you've observed. And then go into more questions about, okay, now that we've talked about this, what do you think you want to do differently going forward? Or what are you learning? What are you taking away from this conversation? And I think sometimes as a boss, we want to help. And so we want to give all the advice and guidance, but that can be overdoing it. At the end of the day, we still are looking for the other person to make a behavioral change, for example, and therefore the reasons and the path of doing that needs to come from within.
Yeah. And I love that because it's an invitation for the person to reflect with you about what happened. Because I know when I've been given feedback, I already knew what was going on. I knew that at that moment, something was up and I shouldn't have done the thing. So actually having a conversation about it just allows it to be and be processed and then say, well, you know, if I were to do it again, I would do X, Y, Z. And then I take power away from that conversation. I don't feel, you know, ground down into the ground. I feel like I'm growing. So yeah, I love that, asking with a question and making it a conversation instead of a, now you will do this, because that, I mean, no one wants to work with a person who does that kind of brand of leadership anymore, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I love that you bring out that you already know that if something happened, right? The moment that you get feedback. And I think it may not always be the case. And I've definitely been in situations where I thought, wait, we've talked about this many times and it still sounds to the other person like we've talked about this for the first time. It's like, what am I doing wrong? Somehow I'm not getting through. And I take that on as my responsibility as the leader. But oftentimes people who want to do a good job, they do want to do a good job and they don't wake up with bad intentions as if I'm going to make some mistakes today and I'm going to be ineffective. Everyone tries to do their best, most people at least. And so extending that trust and assuming that they had best intent in whatever they were doing, and that they also have a level of self-awareness where they realize, maybe that wasn't quite what I was looking for. And creating then that space to talk it through and learn through the dialogue, and for them to feel like you got their back and you're helping them grow. That's establishing trust and setting up future feedback conversations in a really good way.
Yeah. And that's so important for confidence, right? At the end of the day, we want our employees, the people that we work with, to grow in confidence so that they feel empowered to do their best and enjoy themselves at work as well. I work with a lot of women, and one of the things that they say they're looking for is confidence. There's a lot of struggle around confidence, especially with younger women. And I would imagine there's a lot of confidence struggle with new leaders as well. Can you speak to what you've noticed about confidence with people in these new roles and how you've helped them kind of access that?
The way I think about or look at developing confidence is to separate, in the first place, the inner confidence from the the internal from the external confidence. What I mean by that is there's self-confidence, which is sort of that belief that we can figure things out, that we're able to learn and grow, and take on challenges and have resilience. So this is how we feel about our ability to do life in good times and in challenging times. So it's somewhat of in a nutshell, right? The external confidence to tackle something because we've done it before. So for example, for us to have this recording, I'm pretty confident that we're going to do a good job because I've done this before and you've done this before. We know the technical setup. We know the outline of it. We've practiced it. We applied it. It may have taken some courage in the beginning. That courage helped us develop competence. The competence helps us develop confidence. So courage, competence, confidence is a really nice loop that the more that we build it, the more confident, or apply it, the more confidence we will gain, and the less courage it will take to do it over and over again. Going back to the conversation around feedback, it may take a whole lot of feedback and a whole lot of courage to give feedback the first time around. Then we realize, oh, that wasn't so bad. That was actually a really insightful conversation. Next time, I will feel a little bit more confident in my ability to give feedback, and it'll take a little less courage, right? That spiral keeps going and going. That's the external confidence. When it comes to presenting, it's a really good one because a lot of people present only once in a while.
Yeah.
Right. And so if someone was in that mode of having to present every week, they'll soon get better at it because their external confidence because they practice more. And so their external confidence will grow along with that.
Mm-hmm.
But when we only do something once in a while or haven't done it at all in the past, we have to rely on our self-confidence that we will figure it out, or we're going to be okay. And a lot of that is the internal dialogue. So understanding what are the thoughts that make me feel anxious, what are the thoughts that create doubt and worry and insecurity, and then starting to pick those up, those thought patterns and beliefs, and start to slowly reframe them so that we start to develop greater self-confidence. And part of that is also to recognize achievements that we've had in the past, to highlight resilience that we've demonstrated, to develop that greater sense of self-worth. There's a lot of possibilities of feeding into that will then help us create a higher self-confidence.
Yeah, God, I love this. I love the way you unpacked that. It's very clear. And I've been fascinated with confidence for a while. That in the internal dialogue piece, kind of getting a handle on that and being able to trust yourself no matter, well, actually like developing self-awareness to know that whatever that internal dialogue is, which, because a lot of times it's negative, no matter how, evolved we are, that self-awareness piece is quite hard. I would say for most people, it's quite hard. So it sounds like what you're saying is that, and I might be putting words in your mouth, but it's almost maybe easier, or you got to work on it in tandem. But what I'm hearing from you is that if you use that courage as kind of a pushing off point and just do the thing, do the thing and try it again, then that is going to slowly develop that, at least that external confidence.
Yeah. Just because we have a thought, that thought isn't the truth. And so when it comes to building confidence too, I think we were just talking about, sometimes you just have to, be at that cliff and act, not jump over out of the window, but act and get into an uncomfortable space. And the fear that we have, the thoughts that come up of why this is unsafe, are very instinctual, and they actually help us humans survive. It's part of how our human brains are wired. There's nothing wrong with the worry, the concern, the doubts that you have. That listening to them is the problem. Having them, it's not the problem. And I think sometimes we try to not have those thoughts, and we think if I have them, then something is wrong and I shouldn't do it. And I'm saying, no, that's the wrong conclusion. We all have them. And then the choice that you have is, what am I going to do with it? I'm going to listen to it. I'm going to supervise my brain and overrule those instinctual thoughts and go do it anyways.
Yeah, I see this all the time in my women's groups, because I give them tasks to complete on camera, and then they post the video to Slack, and then I give them feedback on those videos. And I know it's super triggering for them every single time. And what I see a lot is they're 6 months programs, and the first month it's like pulling teeth, like, oh no, I can't possibly do that. No, there's something, I can't, there's this, I can't. So there's no courage to try this new thing. There is the belief, like you just said, the belief that the other thought is true. Like, actually, I can't do this, and therefore I'm stuck over here in this eddy, and I will never rise above. So yeah, I love what you're saying. This is so very clearly packaged to me. And I love the idea of courage. I mean, just that word by itself is so evocative of so many things. How would you say your confidence level, or maybe the right question is, like, how do you notice yourself, or how have you noticed yourself change the way you, I don't know, what am I trying to say here? Let's go more to the communications route as it relates to confidence, because communications is a lot of the times where you can demonstrate confidence and you can show that I feel internally good about myself and I trust myself to do the things, whether I have competence in that thing or not. So have you personally noticed, or do you notice with the people that you work with, that as their confidence grows, somehow their communication style changes?
Yeah, there's a level of certainty that comes from having done things in the past and, really being able to have that exterior or develop that external confidence. That develops a greater sense of clarity in their communication, or helps develop a greater sense of clarity. And yet, I would also say there are certain patterns in the way that we communicate that are hard to break, even if we feel more confident or we have greater confidence in something. The M's and the S's, or the body posture, those may simply be behaviors that we've developed over decades. And they may be hard to break. I know people, and I've worked with people who have a really strong level of self-awareness and confidence. And when they speak, or their first impression, the 3 seconds, right, that we of impression that they leave behind initially may not match what's actually happening for them because of the way their body posture, again, their voice, the volume of their voice, the filler words that they use, the gestures or lack of gestures. Well. Inflection. Exactly.
Yeah. And I think so many times most people don't know that they're even doing those things. They're not aware until maybe they get that feedback from someone, or work with a coach, or record themselves. I often tell people, hey, record yourself and watch it. Even though it's painful to watch yourself on video, there's a lot you can learn about how you communicate, and you can train yourself. Really, the first step is about awareness. Oh, I noticed I say a lot. Oh, I noticed I say like a lot, for example, and just noticing and then slowly taking them out or adjusting without hitting yourself over the head all the time, because that doesn't help either, right? Yeah.
And I think there is a bit of a gender difference too. Speaking of broad strokes, there's the men who often have deeper voices, or they're taller, and they may actually not be more confident on the inside, but simply by the way that they show up and present themselves, we think they're more confident. And so therefore we put more weight on what they're saying, because it comes across as if they're very clear and they're very sure about it. Versus someone else, a woman potentially, who has a higher pitch and may even be sort of socialized to say things such as, if I can ask a question, or can I share my own opinion, or really those qualifiers that we add to, and apologizing and all those things. And then if that, and she may be smaller in size and she speaks up, even though she is equally, if not more, confident about what she's saying, the way it's received on the other end, right? Her message, including the nonverbal communication, goes into that black box and it comes out on the other side. It may just come across as less certain. And
so true. Yeah.
And so just understanding this is how our brains are wired. Whether we like it or not, this is how we work. We're social creatures. These are the patterns we build up, the biases we have. And what can I do to optimize the impact I have in my communication on other people?
Yeah. I love that. All of the things you just said about the common communication habits that a lot of women have, the high pitch, the qualifiers, the apologizing, things like that. I see it all the time. And it's a hard habit to break, because we, in a large part, have been acculturated to talk like that. And I've seen blog posts that say, oh, why are people criticizing women about having high pitched voices? and they're kind of taking the other stance of like, it's okay if we have a high-pitched voice. But I think to myself, actually, it's not, because the rest of the entire culture says that it's not okay generally. So to what you're saying, if you want to optimize your impact, you have to be aware of that, and you have to be willing to play the game, so to speak.
Yeah. I mean, I think we both would agree. We wish it wasn't so, right? We wish that size and height and skin color and gender, all of that wouldn't have an impact. We wished we would all just listen to the message and have an unfiltered perception of that. But the truth is, that's not what's happening.
No, because we're not robots, right? We take in so much more.
We haven't evolved yet to that place where women and men are seen as equals. If you look at assessments where people's biases will come out through the assessment, even if we wished it was 50-50, the truth is it isn't.
Yeah.
And it's not just men who see women differently, it's women who see women differently too.
100%. Yeah.
And so I think saying, well, it's okay for women to have high-pitched voices. Like, yes, I want to believe that too. And that's where we should get to. But the truth is today, that is not the case. And so if you pretend that it's not having an impact on other people, that it doesn't matter, you're likely going to miss out, because other people will differentiate.
Yeah, 100%. Right. Well, look, we only have 3 minutes left. I want to honor our time. So I have one more question for you. And I ask this question at the end to everyone I interview. And the question is this: when you think of what it means to communicate confidence, what comes up for you?
Oh, when you think about, say that again, and think about ways to communicate confidence.
When you think about what it means to communicate confidence, then what comes up for you?
Oh my gosh. The initial reaction I have is what comes up for me is in communicating enthusiasm. Like enthusiasm and a level of certainty. There is when someone is confident, it makes me feel warm, calm, cared for, secure in their present. And I'm usually feeling inspired by who they are, what they say. It's a lot more about how this person makes me feel than what they actually do or say. Although the reason why I feel a certain way is probably because of what they do and say. But to me, it's a feeling that I have in their presence.
That's so good. Yeah, thank you for that. You're actually reminding me, I went on a date the other night with this guy, and I was like, he was nice enough, but I just didn't feel good with him. And I've been thinking about it, like, well, why? He's nice enough, he was intelligent, all these things. And it's what you said. He wasn't confident enough. So I didn't feel like I could take my guard down and relax. He wasn't enthusiastic. He didn't make me feel warm. So yeah, I love that. That hits a lot of different parts for me.
Yeah. And I think it transpires into all different areas of our lives, which, by the way, is to say, I think you're very confident, like the way that you have like a level of vulnerability and relatability, but it's very clear that in our conversation or anytime I see you show up, there's this degree, and I've seen you speak before too, right? There's this like natural confidence that you bring along. And that's the feeling that I think, comes through and why I like talking to you too. Yeah.
Aw, thanks. Well, it's such a pleasure. Yeah, I really appreciate it.